Let's talk about a man they call the father of modern science. A guy who took on the most powerful institution on Earth with really just a new way of looking at the night sky. But why was his work considered so incredibly dangerous? Today, we're diving into the story of Galileo Galilei and the unbelievable price he paid for telling the truth.
Legend has it that after being forced to publicly renounce everything he'd discovered, Galileo muttered these words under his breath, "And yet it moves." Now, whether he actually said it or not, it doesn't really matter. That phrase, it just perfectly captures his entire spirit. A stubborn, unshakable belief in what he could see with his own two eyes, no matter what anyone told him.
So what was the big deal? Why was the simple idea that the Earth moves around the sun so radical, so dangerous, that it was actually considered a crime? Well, to get that, you have to step into Galileo's world. A world where truth wasn't something you discovered, it was something you were told.
Our story kicks off not in some fancy observatory, but at a university, where a young Galileo was supposed to be studying medicine to make his dad happy, but instead he started a rebellion. Not against a government, but against 2,000 years of scientific ideas that nobody dared to question.
Okay, so on the one hand, you have the world Galileo was born into. The ideas of the ancient philosopher Aristotle were treated as absolute gospel, things like the heavens are perfect and heavy things fall faster. But on the other hand, you have Galileo's approach. The story goes he was sitting in the Pisa Cathedral, probably bored out of his mind, and he starts watching the chandelier swing back and forth. He used his own pulse to time it and realized something amazing. Every swing took the same amount of time, no matter how wide or short it was. Right there, in that one little observation, a revolution was born. He chose to trust what he could see and measure over what the old books told them to believe.
And so, what does he do? He drops out. He totally defies his father, walks away from a safe, stable career in medicine, all to chase his real passion for math and physics. This was his first big act of rebellion, and believe me, it was just setting the stage for what was to come.
His journey eventually led him to the University of Padua, and this is where he really hit his stride. For the next 18 years, in the pretty open-minded and free-thinking environment of the Venetian Republic, Galileo started to lay the foundation for a total takedown of ancient physics.
In Padua, his rebellion just went into overdrive. He's rolling balls down ramps, measuring everything meticulously, and he proves Aristotle was flat out wrong. All objects fall at the same rate, it doesn't matter what they weigh. And at the same time, he's quietly becoming convinced that another radical idea, the sun-centered model from Copernicus, was actually right. He was building his case piece by piece. And then 1609 happened. This was the year everything changed. Word gets to him about this new Dutch invention, a spyglass. But where others saw a tool for looking at ships on the horizon, Galileo's mind went somewhere else entirely: the stars.
Now, he didn't invent the telescope, but he basically perfected it. In just a few months, he had built his own, and it was 20 times more powerful than the original. And then he did something that no one had ever really done before. He pointed it up at the night sky.
What he saw through that simple tube of glass and wood wasn't just going to challenge the old ideas, it was going to completely shatter them. The universe was about to get a whole lot bigger, and for the people in charge, a whole lot messier. His discoveries were like an all-out assault on the old way of thinking. First, he looks at the moon. It wasn't some perfect, smooth sphere from the heavens. It had mountains and craters and valleys, just like Earth. Then he turns to Jupiter and spots 4 tiny little lights circling it, a total bombshell. It proved that not everything in the universe revolved around us. And the knockout punch? Venus. He saw it went through phases, just like our moon, a trick of the light that could only happen if Venus was orbiting the sun. Galileo published all this in a book called The Starry Messenger. It made him an overnight sensation across Europe, but it also painted a giant target on his back. The evidence was right there, you couldn't deny it, but it flew directly in the face of the Church's Earth-centered universe. A collision was now unavoidable.
And this brings us to the dramatic climax of Galileo's life. His unwavering support for the sun-centered model put him on a direct collision course with the most powerful institution in the world at the time, the Roman Inquisition.
Now, this conflict had been brewing for a while. Back in 1616, the Church officially called the Copernican theory heretical and told Galileo to knock it off. And he did for a while. But by 1632, he thought he had an ally in the new pope, so he published his masterpiece, a dialogue that brilliantly argued for the sun-centered system.
Well, the Pope felt totally betrayed, and the full weight of the Inquisition came crashing down on the now 69-year-old scientist.
So in Rome, facing the very real threat of torture, the elderly Galileo was forced to get on his knees and publicly disown the very truths he had spent his life uncovering. The words from his official confession are just chilling to read.
I mean, just try to imagine that. The greatest scientist of his generation, forced to deny what he knew, deep in his bones was true, all to save his own life. It's an absolutely heartbreaking moment, not just for Galileo, but for the entire history of human knowledge.
But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. They could lock up his body, but they could never, ever lock up his mind. In fact, his greatest public defeat would actually lead to his most lasting victory.
Galileo was sentenced to house arrest for the rest of his life. In those last years, he went completely blind, and he suffered the tragic loss of his beloved daughter. But even through all of that, he was not broken.
While he was trapped in his villa, he went back to his first love, the physics of motion, the stuff he'd worked on in Padua. Forbidden from writing about the stars, he dictated his final, and you could argue his most important book. It had to be smuggled out of Italy and published in the Netherlands, one last, incredible act of defiance.
So, when all is said and done, what is Galileo's true legacy? It's not just the discovery of Jupiter's moons or the mountains on our moon. No, it's something way, way bigger than that.
This is it, the scientific method. See, before Galileo, science was mostly just debating what ancient philosophers had written. Galileo came along and changed the rules of the game. He insisted that ideas had to be tested with experiments and then proven with math. This simple, revolutionary idea is the foundation for all of modern science.
And that's really the core of it, isn't it? His discoveries were amazing, for sure. But his greatest gift to us was his method. He gave us a new way to question the world, to test our own assumptions, and to find the truth for ourselves based on actual evidence.
And that leaves us with this final thought. Galileo challenged the absolute, unquestionable truths of his time simply because he dared to look for himself. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What modern truths that we all take for granted are just waiting for a new Galileo to come along and challenge everything we think we know? Thanks for joining me for this one.